Welcome back everyone to the ultimate guide to Blender 3D rigging and animation. And this is where we left it off. Now let's close the morphing down and come to our tank tracks. And you'll see that when you open up this one, that we've got all of our terrain here where we're going to make our tank tracks go over. This was done just using a displacement on a plane. It's actually important how bumpy you actually have this, because that then will have an effect on how much your tank tracks actually do dig into the sand or whatever terrain you're looking at, because of course it's based on vertices. So in other words, this is trying to stick to this terrain. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to show you how that works. So if we come to our actual wheel here, so we've got tank tracks going around here. So if we come to this wheel, I'm just going to press Shift D and just bring it out a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just now coming to show you that this point here is very important. So you need to have your orientation down at the bottom. The way you do that is you just press Tab, you go underneath it, grab the edge there, and then all you would do is Shift S, cursor selected, and then you just right click, set origin to 3D cursor. So then you can set that there. All right, so how do we do it? Well, what we do is we come to our actual wheel. We're going to come to over here and you'll see one that's constraints, add object constraint. And the one you're going to put on is a shrink wrap. And the actual target is, of course, going to be our actual terrain. And then what you want to do is you want to actually change this where it says nearest surface point and change it to target normal project. And the reason I change that is because then I have actually some control. So now if I move my wheel out, you will see that if I move my wheel up and down now, like so, you can see here where it's actually going into the sand. So if I press dot just to zoom in. So now what you can do is you can actually press tab. You can grab the whole thing. And when I bring the whole thing up now, you'll see that this still won't change. So if I bring it up in edit mode, you'll see that our orientation stays there. The moment I press tab now, it will be up here instead. Now you will see that the wheel still tries and follows this, but it's not actually stuck in the ground like that, which means now we can bring this down and actually control how far we actually want that sat on top of the ground. So that's why that's so important. All right, so we've got our wheel basically set up. We're happy with where it is. The other thing, of course, to remember is that your tank tracks are going to be underneath here, so you need to give it a little bit of a leeway on there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to close this off. I'm going to bring my wheel back then and just put it into place. So now we know how that works. We've got our tank track here, as you can see. So what I'm going to do now is just going to delete this. So if I delete this, you can see now when I click on my wheel, my orientation is there. And all I'm going to do is I'm basically going to make another wheel. So I'm going to press Shift D. And you could make, 5 wheels and have it as a tank track. But what we'll do is we'll make it a little bit different just to show you how this actually works. So if I press 7 now to go over the top, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press S and Y, bring this in so it's the same size as the other one. And basically you want it as close as you can. So you don't really want a big gap in here, so you don't want this over here or something like that. And the reason is because obviously they wouldn't work. Tank tracks simply have to have something that actually the tank track is able to rest on. So it's very important that we put them relatively close together like so. All right, so I'm not going to join them up. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull them over here. And the reason I'm going to do that is because then if I press 1, I can actually see what I'm doing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Shift S, cursor to selected, and of course it's going to put it in between both of these orientations here. And then I'm going to bring in a curve, and it's going to be a circle. Now I'm going to spin that round, so RX 90, spin it round, and I'm going to lift it up like so. Now the other thing is when I brought a circle in, you will know that this circle will only have 4 points. So if I come to this circle and press the tab button, you can see it's only got 4 points. Now you might want to work with these 4, but what I find is just to grab the whole thing, right click, and then all I'm going to do is subdivide like so. And I find that just much easier to work with. Now what I also find easier to work with first of all is when I grab my circle now, I'm going to bring on proportional editing. And then what I'm going to do is press Shift Space Bar, and then I've got my move tool and I'm able to move this into place. So the first thing I tend to do is I tend to just get this one into place, and then I get this one into place like so. And then I think about how to, kind of move these around. Now what I tend to do is I will come in and just delete these off. So I've grab both of these vertices, press delete vertices, and you can see already that makes it much easier. Now turn your proportional editing off, and what we can do now is we have a lot more finesse and control over this. So what you want to do is you want to get this as close as possible. Well, not as close as possible. You want you want to leave a band around there so that your track can actually go in there. All right, then what I'm going to do is pull this one up. I'm going to bring it down then, like so. And you can see now we've got kind of a nice flow. It just wants to probably come up a little bit more so it's got that nice flow. Now let's work on this one as well. So we're going to get a nice flow on this one. You can see that's looking quite nice. And then on this one, what I'll do is I'll just delete it. So if I delete vertices, and now you can see we've nearly got that flat because we want this to be relatively flat because our wheels are relatively flat. So if I grab, let's say this one now and pull this up, you can see now I can actually get that to be relatively flat. So I can bring this over like so, and then I can also bring this one up, and there we go. Now we can see we're getting somewhere like so, and let's bring it down a little bit. Let's bring it across. Let's have a look at that. And yeah, that should do. We don't want to, you know, play around with this for too long. So I'm just trying to show you how to actually do this. All right. So then once you've got this, we've got basically the wheels. We've got our circle that our tank tracks are going to follow. So now what we need to do is we need to actually put on, I think actually, yeah, we can bring it over to our actual sand. So I'm just going to bring it over to my sand here. I'm going to press dot again just to zoom in. And then I'm just going to, I think, put it there. What I'll do now is, now I've got it all, I'll press Shift S again. I'm going to do cursor to selected like so. And what I'm going to bring in now is an empty. So Shift A, bring in a empty. Now empties, if I press 1, are really, really important because what it enables it to do is it enables things to follow along. So you can actually do a lot of animations following an actual empty. And it's called an empty because it will not appear in the render. So for these tank tracks, we're going to actually have them, you could have them following a cube even, but it's better to use an empty because then it's invisible to the render and you don't actually have to worry about it. So what we're going to do now is if I grab both of these and I attach them to my empty. So if I grab my empty last, so this empty here, press Ctrl P and come down to object. And now you can see I've got some lines. Now wherever I move that empty, of course, these actual wheels are going to go along with it. Next of all, what I want to do now is I want to put these wheels down to the actual floor. So the way I'm going to do that, as we've talked about, we'll come to Object Constraint, go to Shrink Wrap. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this down to the last one, which is Target Normal Projection. And then I'm going to put the target onto this actual floor, which is the ground. Same on the other one. Don't worry if your curve's over there. It doesn't really matter because we're going to sort that out in a minute. So Shrink Wrap. Bottom one, target, floor, like so. All right, so now let's pull this circle down. So if I press 1, I want to pull it down. I'm going to press Z just to make sure that I'm round it again. So I'm going to pull it all the way down, like so. Z again, solid, and there we go. Now that's looking pretty nice. We can bring them down. We've got control over this if we need to, as we know. And now what we want to do is we want to put the circle, first of all, more in the middle. Because you can see these have kind of moved out a little bit. So let's pull this over here. Like so, and there you go. Now your circle's more in the middle. Now what you need to do is you need to grab your first wheel, grab your actual circle. So we're shift selecting this circle, and then we're going to press tab. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attach these 3 points here to my actual wheel. So if I grab these 3 points, so this one down here, and all I'm going to do then is press Ctrl H, and you're going to see one that says hook to selected object. Click that on. And then you're going to press tab, grab your next wheel, grab your actual circle, press tab, and we're going to grab these 2 now. And what we're going to do is exactly the same thing. So Ctrl H, hook to selected objects, like so. All right, so now what happens is if I move this empty, you should see that the actual tank tracks and the wheels all move along independently, like so. That's exactly what we want to do here. All right, so what we'll do then on the next lesson is we'll actually come and get our tank tracks actually on here, and then it should all move around together over this terrain. All right, everyone, so I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.